The All-Star break means a lot of different things for different teams. Sometimes it means for a team to kind of gear up and get ready for that playoff push. Sometimes it means for tanking teams to go ahead and just start resting players. And sometimes it's for evaluation. And for this team, I think that's where we are right now. Not to say that the tank is or is not on. That's regardless of that. It's about an evaluation for this Bulls team. When do Josh Giddey and Tre Jones return? Does this team actually try to win any games over the rest of the way? Is development even really a priority for this team? And why should all Bulls fans be rooting for the Portland Trail Blazers? We're going to break all that down, plus dive into the mailbag right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And I want to get into some of my biggest questions for the Chicago Bulls, to look for and things to look for. It's questions and things to look for after the All-Star break. And the first one that I have on the list is, when do Josh Giddey, Tre Jones, and Jalen Smith return? That's really the biggest one here, right? And I think it's for a couple of reasons. Now, for some fans, and I'm saying some, that don't believe that the Bulls are actually going to prioritize draft position the rest of the way, there still are Bulls fans that do believe that. One of the things that they're holding on for in that is by saying, hey, listen, when Tre Jones, Josh Giddey, and these guys come back, this Bulls team is going to start winning. And, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with that. I do think the brand of basketball that we're going to start playing is going to look a little bit better once those guys come back, and especially those two point guards to actually operate the system. Right now we've been running between Anthony Simons, Jaden Ivey as point guards, and neither one of those guys are truly point guards. They're scoring guards, right? Even Colin Sexton at this point of his career is more of a scoring guard than a point guard that's actually running an NBA system. And we always know that that's when Billy Donovan's system looks the best. You have a high-level point guard that's able to operate it, able to run it. And I think regardless of winning or losing being the focus there, is about the development. Right now, the way that the brand of Bulls basketball that the Bulls are playing is not just good for development. They're just out there playing rec ball. Pat, the designer over on Locked On Bulls, said they're hooping, they're not playing NBA basketball. And I think I believe that, and I agree with that to a large extent. They hooping, even depending on how you look at that, but they're not really playing like a system, right? Now, some of that also is the fact that we changed and turned over so much of our roster at the trade deadline, didn't have a lot of practices with these guys before they had to take the court and start playing together. So that's definitely part of it, and I want to be clear in that also in saying that's part of it. So we'll see, right? So while I may not have some of the hope that other people have that, the Bulls are all of a sudden going to start winning more games when Josh Giddey and Tre Jones and these guys come back, I do think the brand of basketball that we play is going to be better, and thus is going to be better for development, right? And, I'm not somebody who thinks, and I say this all the time, that thinks, just by going out there and getting 15 shots instead of 12 shots, it all of a sudden means that you're developing more. It means that you have more of an opportunity, but how are you getting those shots? And with the way that the system's been running out there, these guys aren't running actions. They aren't running a system. They aren't running a scheme. They aren't, isolating players out or coming off screens or stuff like that. They're not doing that. So they're out there playing off their natural basketball instinct, and I don't know if that's the best for the development. When you have Matas and Jaden Ivey and even Rob Dillingham as, three players that are probably going to be here next year in some shape, form, or fashion, I don't know if that's necessarily the best for them. And then that leads us naturally to the next question. How much is development even really the focus right now? And that's the question that I have that's serious. Like, you got to look at it. When you have players like P. Will playing more minutes than Matas Buzelis, when you have players like, Jaden Ivey, who went from the starting lineup to the bench, only one game though, but like he's a piece that you're trying to evaluate and trying to build up that confidence in that leg so you can try to figure out what you're going to do with him in restricted free agency. So those type of things still being here and being around this team, I think are very loud in regards to it as well. So, I got to see what's going to happen there. Now, you guys know, I'm not the biggest Billy Donovan and development guy. I don't think Billy Donovan does a lot for players' development. That's my personal opinion. You guys can feel about that how you will. There's a mix of people who have different feelings on that. But, I think that still you have to pick guys in a situation where they're given opportunities to fail. That's one thing Rob Dillingham said. One of the first quotes after he became a Bull is say, hey, we can mess up here. Now, some people took that one way or another, and that's perfectly fine. But like as it stands now, this Bulls team isn't getting that opportunity as much as you would want when some certain guys are playing over other ones. So, Rob Dillingham's last game was nice. Like to see that. But all right, how much is that opportunity going to go away when Josh Giddey and Tre Jones comes back while you're still playing Colin Sexton and Jaden Ivey and Simons above those guys? So, that's what you have to question in regards to that. So that's something we got to see. We're going to see how that shakes out. I mean, for what it's worth, Rob Dillingham in his 3 games averaging 24 minutes. That's more. Jaden Ivey in his 4 games here is averaging 28.8 minutes. That's way more than what he was getting, almost 12 to 13 minutes more than what he was getting with the Detroit Pistons. And as a player that you're trying to build up that confidence in that leg and get back to kind of his natural nature of stuff, then yeah, you want that to happen there. So those are all things that matter in that. So I am questioning how much development really is a focus the rest of the way for the Chicago Bulls team. And that, leaving that at the head of Billy Donovan, is already scary enough. The next one is, who stands out the rest of the way, right? Like, of course, you want Matas Buzelis to get an opportunity. You want him to stand out. Josh Giddey, it's great. Does he look good, running more of the system, having kind of more off-ball players around him? Does he look like that? But I think when you look at Matas, Josh, Noah, Rob Dillingham, those are guys that we know are going to be here. And Noah Essengay isn't even here on the roster right now because he's out hurt. But Matas, Josh, and Rob Dillingham are going to be here because they have contracts. They're going to be here next year unless there's a trade to be done. But as things stand right now, based off what we know, those guys are going to be here. So who else stands out other than those guys, right? There's Colin Sexton, Jaden Ivey, Nick Richards, Yabusele, Anthony Simons, right? Rob Dillingham, who I put in the last one. But, do these guys actually show anything that makes the front office want them to stick around? And I know some Bulls fans are like, none of these guys are coming back. No, they're going to I guarantee you they're going to be running 2 of those guys back because you have their bird rights. And you got to keep in mind, bird rights are so valuable in the NBA because you do not have the ability to re-sign players that aren't on bird rights and stay over the cap. So you have that aspect of things you have to remember as well. So while you might go out and try to get a Walker Kessler, just to name one, in free agency, if you need a backup and Zach Collins walks, you have bird rights on Nick Richards, so you can re-sign him even if you have to go over the cap to do so. You can't go over the cap to get Walker Kessler, so that's going to take your actual cap space. And then the space that you still have beneath the luxury tax, you're going to have to keep some other guys. That's why bird rights are important. So some of those guys are going to stick around. What do they show, though, to make that make sense? Colin Sexton, is a guy. Jaden Ivey, because he's a restricted free agent, I think is another guy that you have to look at, that you want to see what he's going to be. The Bulls are probably going to tender him an offer anyway just because he's an asset and you don't want to lose that. And like I said, before his injury, he was on that upward trajectory that you want to see from a scoring guard. So you have that part of it. And while I love Anthony Simons, and I think that Anthony Simons is such a fluid scorer. Like, he's a guy that is very consistent in the way that he scores the basketball. The shooting percentages basically stay the same, all that type of stuff. Of course, there are going to be some games where it's not as consistent as others. That's the nature of scoring in the NBA. But, a guy like Anthony Simons, do the Bulls actually try to make a ploy to keep him here? Does he, already talked about wanting maybe to go back to Boston? So there you go on that one. But so do any of those guys look like anything worth keeping around? And that's one of the standouts here. One of the guys that I didn't mention as well, because Leonard Miller, who we haven't really played at all, really in any meaningful way. He's played in 2 games. He's averaged 4.5 minutes. I don't really think he's part of the Bulls' plans. I know some people have said, well, we got Leonard Miller. We could take a shot. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying no. I'm just going off what we've seen so far from him. Yes, he's 22 years old, 6'10", 220 pounds, but it's not a lot there that looks really good. So, and it doesn't seem like the Bulls are giving him that opportunity, which may point towards they don't necessarily believe that he's going to be part of that future, but we'll see there, right? And then I do want to say this as well. Do we start hearing anything about Billy Donovan's future? Now, I'm not very hopeful that the Bulls are going to change anything with Billy Donovan, but I just want to know, right? Like, again, your 5th out of 6 year with a losing record. You don't typically stay around teams than that. I don't trust Billy Donovan with developing talent. And even though I do think that the Bulls could legitimately go back to trying to compete next season, depending on what they do this offseason, even if you do that, right? Your young players are going to be a huge part of that. Your draft pick of this year, if you're prioritizing your draft pick, is going to be a huge part of that. Do you want Billy Donovan being the guy to guide that development of that talent? I mean, this is a question that we ask every single year, And AK, the Reinsdorfs, they look at us every single year and they say Billy Donovan's our guy. So at some point, we just got to stop asking the question, I guess. But I think it's still a very legitimate question up until this point. Like, what are we doing here? What the fuck are we doing here? And I don't really have that answer as it stands right now. So we'll see what happens with that one. But I do want to know if do any legitimate. I know we heard the Duke coach, but that went quiet right away. But as the season goes on and as the offseason gets closer and closer, do the Bulls actually look to do something they probably should have done a while ago? Let's move off of Billy Donovan. And then the last thing that isn't necessarily Bulls, it affects the Bulls, but it's not Bulls-centric, is the Trailblazers. Every Bulls fan should be rooting for the Portland Trailblazers the rest of the way. The Blazers right now are the 9th seed in the Western Conference, and they will make the play-in regardless. Unless something crazy happens, they're going to make the play-in. But I'm watching specifically for the Blazers to see if they can get up to that 8th seed. If the Blazers can get up to the 8th seed, that means that they only need to win 1 game out of 2 tries to get into the playoffs. If they get to the playoffs, the Bulls get the pick. Very simple protection on that one. They're right now 2.5 games below the Golden State Warriors for that 8th seed. But the thing that definitely gives them a leg up is the Blazers have the easiest schedule remaining in the NBA. They are 30th in strength of schedule with the remaining way. And while this is a young team that at times has been very inconsistent, the ease of that schedule could help propel them in there. Whereas the Golden State Warriors, the teams that's one spot above them, have the 16th hardest schedule remaining in the NBA. So still not an extremely hard schedule, but it's a lot harder than what the Portland Trailblazers have to do. And with the Warriors also missing Jimmy Butler the rest of the way for the season and them being a bit of an older team, we'll see what ends up happening in that case. So I hope that the Blazers can do it. Now, that's just getting into the play, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make it into the playoffs. We still then would have to hope they can get 1 win out of 2 games. But and with a young team that's sometimes inconsistent, maybe that may not happen. But I do hope that the Portland Trailblazers can get in the playoffs, because then that means the Bulls could very well have 2 picks in the top 15 and definitely 2 picks in the top 18. Let's see how that shakes out for this team. But with that said, it is Saturday. That means it is Mailbag Day here at Chicago Bulls Central. Let's go ahead and get into these mailbags, man. This first voicemail, this one's from Mike.
Hey, what up, Haize? This is Mike up in Avondale. Huge Bulls fan. I always follow the team, unfortunately, even in times like this. Just calling to talk about these trades and where things are at. It's just, I feel like they were just 1-2 trades away from really setting themselves up. I mean, I really thought that they were going to move on and trade Simons and Sexton. When they got those guys in the trade, I was like, okay, we're kind of, we took on that expiring contract in that first trade, and then we moved that, and then we were just kind of flipping guys. And what we're looking for is size. We're looking for size at forward, and we're looking for size at center, and particularly guys that play up and around the rim, guys that attack the rim and guys that protect the rim, that are big, forwards and center. And we got all these guards, and it's like, well, okay, we keep on flipping it. And we wind up, you got Simons and Sexton on the team now. We don't get that big. And we got Dillingham, who's sure, talented guy, but he's small. And he's the guy that we got that isn't a free agent. These other good players are free agents. The project guy with upside, we wanted a big forward or a big center. That's the kind of, like a Dillingham type as far as contract and potential goes, but not Dillingham as a small guy. We want like a guy like that in that same situation who can, grow his talents, and we have him at, for the next year or 2, but we needed a big dude, and the guy we got is small. And what is the plan with him? If you could explain it. So we want to develop him. But also Sexton and Simons are better. So we're going to play them over him, but then we still want to develop him. And what is we looking to develop him into? We got Josh Giddey. They already said they don't want to move him. Him and Matas, they don't want to move. So what are we developing Dillingham into? We can't possibly be thinking he's going to be the 2 next to Giddey. I mean, this 6-foot guy is going to be the 2. I mean, Simons, who would be good, he's already small at the 2. So are we developing Dillingham as like the backup point guard for Giddey? And that's what we traded for, to like develop a backup point guard? And then I'm thinking, is there any chance you...
The problem with being a trade or 2 away from competing for a playoff spot, Mike, was that the Bulls are also a trade or 2 away from bottoming out. And the thing with that is, and again, I'm not justifying their trades. I think AK made some stupid trades in this case, but if you're looking at the logic to it, that's why. And if you did make a trade, let's say you made a trade for a star, which means that you have to give up draft assets, and you probably also would have to give up your cap space. You lose those things, and when you do that for a team that isn't already a surefire playoff team, you actually lose assets in the long term. You're losing money, you're losing draft capital, and it's not necessarily as sustainable. So I think what the Bulls did is they decided to double down on what could be more sustainable, and they're taking their shots in the draft and going after that young talent that then it could build something more sustainable with the other young talent that you have there. But now we just got to bet on AK getting it right, and that's scary. I'd rather go see Scream 500 times. But so you have that part of it. So that's what you're looking at there. So I think they're going the more sustainable route, and they're focusing on a deep draft, which is a draft where you can probably get a starter to maybe a player that can still turn into a star even at pick 10. And that's what the Bulls are hoping that they're going to do. And that would be the more sustainable part of that. I think that's the plan and that's the ploy here. We just got to see if they can get it right. And like I said with AK, we shall see. All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from Big O.
What's going on, Brother Haize? Hope all is well. Great videos as always. I'm just watching one this morning. Had me call in, man, talking about AK, and it's pretty evident that the tank is on. And for me, it's like, man, it's tough to keep beating a dead horse, but over the last couple of years, I've been calling into your show, been voicing that how I think that the Bulls should get worse, to take a shot at Wemby, take a shot at Flag. The last couple of drafts, and they didn't want to do it. I mean, it happened now, so it's just like, now here we are. You got a chance at some really great players in this draft. So I guess my thing is, to your point, how can we trust AK to make the right decision? And we won't know for down the line, right? So it's like, yeah, we need you to do your job. Go out, scout players, and make the best decision possible as far as talent. At this point, I don't really think it matters who fits. If you got 10 guards and the best guard available is another guard, the best player available is another guard, then go get that player. You know what I mean? Just, stack this thing with talent, especially young talent, especially if you think the player got a chance to ascend. But the flip side of that for me is that, or my problem, I guess I could say with AK, is that sometimes I think he just get in his own head and try to reinvent the wheel, try to outsmart everybody in the room. You go out and grab Patrick Williams, everybody like, who the hell is that? You know what I mean? When you had, Tyrese Halliburton, you had, other guys that may not have, turned into superstars, but, very good serviceable players that was there for you to grab over Patrick Williams. Same thing with Jalen Terry. You know what I'm saying? Kessler was right there. You try to outsmart everybody and go grab, Jalen Terry, and it's just like, dude, just grab, you know what I mean? You don't have to be smarter than everybody. Most people, that scout and watch college basketball know who the best players is. Know there's there's going to be a lot of talent in there. You don't need to, go get a no name and think doing something, crazy or, something that's going to shock the world. Just grab the best talent that's there. You know what I mean? It don't matter what his name is. You know what I mean? Don't go grab, some no name just because you think that, you above everybody else and that you got a sleeper. You know what I mean? For me,
I think what you're saying can be summarized very simply, is that Arturas Karnisovas in his time drafting here has focused so high on players with high ceilings that sometimes he forgot to consider the floor. There have been some very high floor players, Walker Kessler being one of them, that we passed up on that when you look at the state of this team now, wouldn't it be nice to have some of those players that just have high floors, especially when you look at all the players that we had with potential got traded away? Julian's gone. Dalen's gone. P. Will's still here, and that's because we gave him a contract before we recognized some shit there. But, that's getting. Now, Matas, he has a high floor and a high ceiling, I believe. I believe at his floor, Matas Buzelis is a starter on the NBA team. A decent starter. At his ceiling, maybe he can be even more than that. But I think going forward, hopefully AK really does consider the floor as much as the ceiling. Now, if you have 2 picks in this draft, if we do, in the 2026 draft, I wouldn't mind seeing him go high floor and then high ceiling with one of the picks and do something like that. And we'll see. All right, let's get into the next one, man. This one's from Vikram.
What's up, Haize? It's Vikram. I just wanted to ask you about what you think, Tre Jones' future is in Chicago. Because for me, I feel like I think the Bulls are going to take a chance on Rob Dillingham and Jaden Ivey, and I feel like if there's a point how do I say this? If there's a moment where you should take advantage of Tre Jones' value, should be this offseason. Maybe that comes on draft day. Maybe we use him and a pick to move up or something. I don't know. But do you think I just want to hear your thoughts on how what you think AK would do this offseason with Tre Jones. Would he keep Tre Jones around and kind of move Rob Dillingham to third string, or do you think it would be something where Tre Jones is utilizing a trade to move up in the draft or get another late first round pick or something? I don't know. Yeah, just let me know what you think. And I know you said kind of after that Celtics loss, that was a bunch of bad basketball, Matas isn't learning anything for the rest of the year kind of. But do you not think that with kind of more the on ball reps that Matas is getting, that does help him? Help him react to kind of Billy Donovan says this a lot, where Matas doesn't get low when he's making moves, and that is true. He's really upright with how he tries to make moves. But the more and more reps he gets, getting lower and lower and gets stronger with his drives, do you not think that that is good for his development, and we could really see that kind of be put together in year 3 using this year 2 on ball reps that he's getting late in the season? I don't know. That's just I feel like he is growing a lot still through these games. Maybe I just misinterpreted what you said, but yeah, just let me know what you think.
What is Tre Jones' future here? Well, I think that depends on what we do with this offseason. If the Bulls do make moves, which I do think they're going to make moves to try to get themselves right back to being competitive this next season, then you may want to keep Tre Jones around. He's already shown himself to be one of Billy Donovan's favorite players. He's also a very consistent player. The salary isn't that low. So I get what you're saying in Dillingham being here and stuff like that, but we've already seen this team. They're not afraid to have a lot of guards. They're just not afraid to have a lot of guards. So I'm not even factoring that part in with, we got Josh Giddey, and we could have Ivy, and we could have Tre Jones, and we got Rob Dillingham. Are we going to keep? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they keep those guys plus one of either Simons or Sexton. I just would not be surprised with that. So that's just my thought process behind it, right? So, and I think you got to keep in mind too, even with what our roster construction is now. Let's just focus on what it is now. Yes, there are injuries on this team. We have 2 centers on this roster, right? We have Jalen Smith, who can play center and can be a 4. I like him better at the 4. We got forwards in Matas Buzelis, Jalen Smith. Technically, Noah Essengay still on the roster as well, right? So you have forwards, you have centers, right? You just got to find a better mix to it. Now, and I hope that they do that. And also, can we find a home for P. Will? Does anybody want a P. Will? But, that's what I think is going to happen next year. As far as Matas, I don't think Matas is really getting more on-ball reps. When you look at Matas' shots, they haven't really changed much. The usage rate has gone up some, but that's not a lot of on-ball reps. It's kind of because he's finishing at the rim and taking a lot of three-point shots. So I want to see, when I say on-ball reps, I actually want to see Matas bring the ball up. I want to see him operate as a point forward. You got no point guard that's healthy no actual point guard that's healthy right now. Run Matas as a point forward sometimes. Let Sextons and Ivy and Simons, let them come off screens. Even Rob Dillingham, who's more of a scorer than a passer, even though his passing has probably been the thing that stood out to me a little bit more. If you want to run him more scoring opportunities, let Matas operate as a point forward. Let those guys come off screens and get down. That's just I would like to see Matas develop, and I'm not comparing them as players, but the way that Jalen Johnson for the Atlanta Hawks has really developed into a triple-double threat for them, in which he can definitely run the offense, I want Matas to get some of those opportunities. Now, with Josh Giddey and Tre, he's never going to get the type of opportunity that Jalen Johnson gets to do it, but this is your time now to see what you can develop in that. At least that's my thought. All right, let's get into this last voicemail, man. This one's from Corn.
What's the word, King Drip? It's your brother Corn. Let's get right into this shit right here. The tank is real. The tank is real. This is what a lot of people want. This is what a lot of us Bulls fans ask for. So is you not entertained? Is you not entertained? This is what it's going to be. See, when we made these moves, I looked and said, this team don't make any fucking sense. It just doesn't. So, it's time to, cause let me be real, man, it's been hard to watch them since they traded Io. It's been hard. It's going to be, we got some good individual players, I'm looking at Ivy, he's cool. Anthony Simons is he's a scorer, he do what he do. What I do want Matas to take the team all the way over and be the man that we thought and what we think he could be. Yeah, man. The tank is real, and here it is. Here it is. Hopefully it works. I don't really see how tanking works when it comes to the draft because I ain't gonna lie, correct me if I'm wrong, Drip. The guy, the team with the worst record haven't got the number one pick, I don't know what, in the past 4 or 5 years, something like that. You gonna correct me if I'm wrong. But, yeah. And coaching. Y'all don't speak on Billy D that much. I let everybody else kill him. I will say this, because I'm in a great mood today. Been in a great mood. Been in a great mood since the Super Bowl. Because we got a coach. My Raiders. Got the coach. Got the young one. Got the best one that we couldn't have last year, a la Ben Johnson, right? But it's time to make a change at the head coaching job now. It's time to get a young, up-and-coming to help build this team up. So, hey, man, that's what I want when it comes to this team. It's time to change the guard.
Here's what I'll say to this, Corn. I'll say this simply. We want to see Matas get more of an opportunity. We want to see Matas get more of a burn. We all want to see that from Matas Buzelis. Unfortunately, Billy Donovan doesn't run shit that way. He looks at stuff more so in the sense that, we're still trying to win games or whatever. I don't know what Billy Donovan does, but this is opportunity for Matas to step up. I want to see Matas be aggressive. I want to see Matas go out there sometimes and just grab the bull by the horns and just say, hey, look, this is me. And I would love to see Matas do it. He needs to tighten up his handle. For somebody that came into the league with and the handle was one of the things that was, talked about positively in his draft combine, I want to see him tighten that up some. And that's where if you don't use it, you lose it. Is that the proper phrase to use here? So we'll see if Matas can get more of those opportunities. But, the rest of the way for the season, it's not about wins and losses. It's about development, and we'll see what's going to happen here. But all right, Bulls Nation, I want to hear from you guys now. When Giddey and Tre Jones come back, do we start winning? Do you guys think that the Bulls start winning more? Are we developing talent? Or are we just getting cardio out there as a team? And should the Bulls fans be full-time Trailblazers supporters now to finish the rest of the way? Drop your comments down below and your thoughts. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. And like I like to end every episode on, stay safe, go Bulls, and always see right if you can, guys. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.